have you seen this Trump specifically? This is a CFA angle on this. Yeah, Bernstein, $800 billion of assets under management, put out the Monday morning note to clients. You boys already pulled this up.
No, we didn't in the pod, but I read it.
The headline is this: the digital assets memo. Welcome to the crypto bull market. Buy everything you can.
Come on, from Bernstein.
You know Bernstein, right? They're
they're like an institutional research. So, hold on a second. When they say buy everything, they mean any crypto or crypto related asset?
I mean, that's an idiotic headline, but they did run it. Yeah. Like it says, don't fight this, add crypto exposure ASAP.
Oh my goodness, man. Wow.
Crazy, man. The Overton window has been obliterated, boys.
All right, welcome to another episode of Not Investment Advice. You see the grin on my face. There we go. Jack is back in the game. Jack, welcome back, mate. Good to see you.
Boys. Very generous paternity leave policy.
No, but Jack, you got to tell the listeners that haven't heard your sweet voice in months now. What was the impetus for getting you back on here? What was the chat in our DMs where we're like, listen, Jack, we're going to have to move the mountains for you anytime. What time? What was it?
Multiple sequential Bitcoin all-time highs, hour after hour.
There we go. Yeah. Oh, God.
We had our 3-way chat lighting up with Jack dumping memes, sailor memes, fucking people losing their mind memes. And we're like, Butcher, you got to come on.
Go get that energy in. He already hit it with the zinger. We just trunk it. So for Inside Baseball, Trunk and I did record. So you're going to hear that after this. But Jack was able to jump on. So we said, jump on now. We'll put it at the front of the episode.
Let's let him cook right now. Jack,
and he already said in about 1 minute more than we did in an hour episode. So, anyway,
well, let me ask a point. I'll ask 2 questions for Jack. Number 1, so for listeners, when you listen to the second part of this episode, which is in a couple of minutes, you'll hear me and Bilal talk about Trump's effects on various business things, not investment advice. But Jack, we got Jack here right now, so we're gonna ask him, Jack. What's going on in Paris? Where you were just there? What happened? And then B, give us your download on why is Bitcoin rallying. So those are the 2 questions people want to hear. So however you want to take those.
We'll do that. Well, let's do the Bitcoin one first.
Yeah. Let's do that.
So, I mean, the intricacies of the political fundraising situation, I think, are a good indicator of it. Like this, I will not get any of these statistics spot on, but I think crypto spent more than pharma and basically any other organized group fundraising and advocating for crypto. I think there's a pack called Fair Shake. I don't know if you guys have heard of this. They had like 48 races they were trying to fund. They won all 48.
That's mad.
So basically, like, I think a lot of it is downstream, obviously, of like just the insane level of wealth that is concentrated in that space. And then it becomes almost this game theory situation where it's like you can't afford to alienate those people. You can't afford that not to be part of your platform. But in Trump's case, like the guy's launching NFT projects, DeFi protocols, like
the guy is literally orange. The implication. So, I mean, he's the Bitcoin president.
He's the largest owner of Peanut, the squirrel coin that was made.
Yeah. It's so like perfect conditions in on every front, basically. And then you have this like unbridled optimism between now and when like government actually forms and has to make decisions and write policy and all that stuff. But like the air between now and then is just like,
so the next 3 months is going to be absolutely unbelievable.
Not investment advice, man, but Raoul Pal would say we're in the zone now.
We're in the banana zone. It definitely. Mate, well, I'll ask you. Go on, Jack. Go for it.
What else was I gonna say? There's also all these like, obviously you have the Sailor story, the like MicroStrategy going properly ballistic. Have you seen that zoomed out chart? Maybe Rafa can put that in.
We showed it. We showed it during our earlier record. Unbelievable.
Insane. Like hitting all-time highs after 20 years or whatever.
24
Well, tell
years,
people
yeah.
what happened 20 years ago.
.com bubble, right? So MicroStrategy was, I mean, Saylor,
There we go.
The Saylor pitch back then must have been insane too. We should go and dig those up because I'm sure he was
The
on
old
CNBC.
videos
Dude,
of him.
waxing
He
lyrical.
He was
about
on
the
Charlie
internet.
Rose. He was on Charlie Rose
Yeah.
in 2012, and he talks about losing $6 billion during .com, like entire wealth wiped. We should, you know what? Some inside baseball.
Most
I'm gonna
insane
clip
redemption
that.
arc ever, right?
Yeah. Well, that and a certain Donald J. Trump.
Yeah. They're up there.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, what? Keep cooking. What else? What does this mean for your business? What does it mean for the various projects you're working on?
Well, I think that like the level of uncertainty that was, the like lack of meaningful guidelines or like is the American administration hostile to this or not? The market seems to think that there has been a definitive answer to that, at least in the short term, the next 4 years, which, as an environment to like make stuff, develop stuff, build things is obviously much better conditions than like, oh, I'm not sure if this, should I move my business to Dubai? Should I do X, Y, and Z? It's good signal all around for crypto in America.
If you want $1,000 haircut, then you should do that. But otherwise, keep it in the USA.
Keep it local, mate. Bitcoin made in America. We want American-made Bitcoin. Oh, I mean, this was another. I don't know if we did a pod back then or if I would already bounced, but the Bitcoin conference in Nashville, he came to speak at that.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So
were you at
on
that?
the campaign trail? Not, I was like doing stuff around that, but didn't actually go to the event on that day. But there's so many threads here. There's also like these are all Saylorisms too of the like nation state game theory about Bitcoin. It's like whoever prints money to buy Bitcoin first wins. And there's all these like fascinating case studies now popping up that it's at all-time highs where where Germany dumped that clip of like 50,000 Bitcoin stone cold bottom, I think it was a couple months ago. Out like $2 billion on that position now.
Who did?
And then
Who
you
did?
have
They
Germany.
bought
sold
$2
all
billion of
all
Bitcoin.
that.
Oh, they sold.
They sold
they
it.
sold it.
Yeah.
They sold
And
it.
they missed out on $2 billion of upside in the last couple months.
So El Salvador is laughing right now.
El Salvador's I mean, there's so many, and like, if you think about it, it's not really, well, it may not be intelligent to announce you're doing that as a nation state either. There's like, there's maybe some, like if you're El Salvador and that is, there's been benefits to them being public about it, but there's also benefits to like not saying, hey, we're using nation state level resources to accumulate this thing.
I'm just pulling up. This is the same people that did sailortracker.com. They have Naive
Oh, wow.
tracker.com.
Hysterical.
And so they're up. This is El Salvador.
They're up 100 mil.
That's mad, yeah. So, but
Oh,
96%.
they bought at the bottom though. They've bought at some of the bottoms.
Yeah, I
man.
wonder if there's been more
man.
since then.
Proper
that
conviction,
aren't.
yeah.
But like, very interesting. For people listening later in the pod, which we recorded before, you'll see we'll go through the Sailor tracker as well here, which is not to be missed. But that's a pretty wild jump as well. Everything starts looking good when things are up, essentially, right? Everyone seems like a genius. But I'll ask, were your group
like
chats going off though? Because to me, that's the indication of these old group chats where it's like, I don't even know half these people in this group chat, but I haven't literally met any of them except for one guy who's like a friend of mine who added me. And these are, I hate to use this phrase, but in air quotes, normie friends, right? So people who are like, wait a minute, what happened? And they're like sending random articles trying to explain, be like, Apple did this. And I'm, no, it ain't nothing to do with Apple here. What are we talking about?
Yeah.
That's been slowly ramping up, but we're not, did you guys see the Google Trends data compared to the past for all-time highs? The summary is essentially we're nowhere near at all-time high in terms of search interest
Larry
volume.
and the boys.
Exactly.
Oh
So in terms of retail essentially interest. It's not there. It's not
man.
nowhere near where it was before in the past.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull the screenshot up, but there's have you seen this trunk specifically? This is a CFA. There's a little CFA angle on this. Yeah, Bernstein, $800 billion of assets under management, put out the Monday morning note to clients. You boys already pulled this up.
No, we didn't in the pod, but I read it.
The headline is this: the digital assets memo. Welcome to the crypto bull market. Buy everything you can.
Come on, from Bernstein.
Yeah, Bernstein, right? They're
they're like an institutional research. Hold on a second. When they say buy everything, they mean any crypto or crypto related asset?
I mean, that's an idiotic headline, but they did run it. Yeah. Like it says, don't fight this, add crypto exposure ASAP.
Oh my goodness, man. Wow.
Crazy, man. The Overton window has been obliterated, boys.
Okay, what do you okay, you're saying like we've been tracking, right? From fiat fan converting finally from fiat to Bitcoin, and then Larry Fink and BlackRock, and then Jamie Dimon. That's what you mean, Jack? You're saying you have August institutions and individuals from TradFi. They're bending the knee. It's inevitable.
It's over, boys.
It's
over. We won.
We won. Wait, did you get that? My friend was texting me this exactly. It's the same thing as well. Let me just pull it up. It's the I think we shared it as well. Basically, 1 second. Sorry, you guys can keep talking.
I got a side note. So Jack, while he's looking that up.
God, actually, sorry. God, try. I'll say it real quick.
Bilal,
we survived 3AC bankruptcy, Luna collapse, UST depeg, Celsius bankruptcy, FTX collapse, Binance FUD. You deserve this. Basically.
Bro,
so I mean, for anyone who said, "Oh, you just been like, you did really well to buy something really early."
Hold on a second, super quickly. I'm gonna have to boogie in a second. I gotta take my kid somewhere. But Jack, I just gotta say, Vancouver opened up a direct flight to Nashville. So something.
Nice.
I'm letting you. Yeah, we're gonna figure something out. Jack, tell us about Paris, and then I'm gonna boogie.
All right, let me pull up a quick screen share, boys. So basically, did this exhibit it's called Paris Photo Fair, which is like a legit traditional photo fair.
Beautiful.
And partnered with this Parisian gallery called La Collection. And we made these 80 pieces, 10 of which were exhibited here in the Grand Palais.
Wow.
They even turned the whole place into visualized value colors. I like that.
There you go.
Bro, that's why they had the Olympic stuff. They had some Olympic stuff in there.
That is beautiful.
Yeah, just an insane venue. It's been closed for 5 years. They've been remodeling it and fixing it up, but just incredible. So this is the gallery down here you see in the bottom right. So an 80-piece collection, all done with neural networks. So all these images are AI generated from the same prompt. It's the 100-year anniversary of Surrealism, which was a period in art history that began in Paris. So that's the theme of the fair itself. So all of these images are basically playing with those ideas from Surrealism. These like impossible images. It's a series of 80 that there's a digital component and a physical component. The digitals are, let me go back one. These white on black, which is like the VV OG aesthetic, but it's also this conceptual pointer to photography. So you have the negative that's exposed to film, like exposed to light, and becomes this like inverted image. And then we made these physical pieces, which are these 50-inch square prints, these huge prints that you saw in the first slide. They're actually done by this lab in Paris that used to work with all these OG surrealist photographers 70, 80 years ago. So it's taken this digital process, put it through like very classical, old school photo printing technique, and then sold them as pairs. So there's every one comes with its digital counterpart. They're white on black, and then the physicals are black on white in these just enormous, they're called silver gelatin prints. It's like a traditional
Dude, I love how this is not the first time you've done physical and digital combos, right? Like I know in the past you've done something with a
Second
real world
time done a
representation.
proper like big one. Yeah.
Or like where remember how
sick.
you sign stuff for like whatever 18 hours straight? Like same idea, right? It's like, dude, so sick.
That was next level, man. I forgot about that.
So,
I was like, dude, that was always gonna be easy. I'm sure I'll be fine. And then
I remember
18
Celia
hours
posted
later,
that video, right? I'm like, oh my god, the carpal tunnel, man.
oh my god.
yeah.
Yo, Jack, I'd have to ask, how many times did you play Jay-Z, Kanye West song, Going to Paris, being in Paris?
I had to
Just
give it a couple on. You land on the runway, yeah.
You gotta celebrate. It's like every time we go to London, you gotta play some drill music, some gully stuff. But if you're going to Paris, you gotta represent, man. That looks amazing, bro. Congrats. That is a sick.
Congratulations,
boys.
man.
Very
No,
cool.
thank you, dude. Thank you for rolling up in the cut.
There we go. Jack is
dude, if we're
got his
gonna-
hands full, but
Yeah, he got his hands
this
full.
can squash the rumors. People like,
Yeah.
oh, there must be beef going on. No. Jack's got stuff. Jack's got stuff going on.
Jack's
but
literally
Just
busy
getting the
with like
schedule
life
dialed
and
back
work.
in, boys.
yeah, we'll get it going.
Well,
We
there
can
ain't
adjust it too.
no
We
pressure,
could.
man. I just know that when it's banana zone time, though, so you might feel pressure yourself.
That's the thing.
to
We
participate
basically
in
just
banana
have to
zone.
just do NA old school for the next few months. This while it's going
It's
on, this is
electric,
the
boys.
best of times.
You have to get this stuff recorded for posterity.
Yeah, exactly.
Electric.
All right. Anything else, boys, before we wrap it up here?
No, this is fantastic, man. Oh, dude, great to chat with Big Jack again.
By the way, we didn't cover this on the pod. I just do want to say we didn't get to do this meme in a week. But Jack, did you see the Trump fad diet? Did you see this? What he eats in a day? What powered him through a presidential win? He fasts most of the day, has black coffee, then he has 2 Big Macs, 2 fillet of fishes, and a chocolate shake. Incredible.
Huberman Lab. Huberman Lab.
Yeah,
stuff,
and
right?
I saw Brian Johnson responded like, I need to rethink my life here.
That's great.
It's pretty good, yeah, because it's the opposite of Brian Johnson. But I love the tweet. It was very powerful diet. Long intermittent fast followed by a dinner of pure Americana. I mean, that is beautiful. All right, boys, I feel we can wrap it here. But for people listening, obviously, we got a whole pod for you now. Jack, Trung and I will be breaking down all the different verticals and impact
on
of
the
what's
YouTube
going on.
engagement thing, where the
It's
drop
gonna
off is going to
drop
be a
off,
90-degree angle. People that came to see Jack are going to like.
There we go. Well, good to have you back, Jack, and obviously we'd love to have you back often as you can, and we'll keep you guys posted. Jack's got a lot on his plate, but yeah, it's always best when all 3 of us here, obviously, man. But so good to see you, mate.
Banana zones, buddy.
Banana zone time. All right, everyone,
Cool.
enjoy the
All
rest
right.
of the episode.
Yeah, peace out, brothers.
Trung, what a week. What a week, man.
I got the dumbest smile on my face right now, people. And I know a lot of listeners like, wait, Trump, don't be political. Why are you smiling? Bro, this ain't about the election. This is about a digital asset called Bitcoin, an encrypted wall of energy, which almost 3 years ago to the T, these guys told me to pump my funds into. And I did, and I took a massive L. Yeah. Via fan. There were some dark days.
But outside of the election, because obviously we're going to be talking about the winners and losers today after the election.
Business
obviously
winners
knows.
And losers. Business people.
There we go.
Not investment advice, not political advice, not life advice.
But the main one, obviously NIA core here, old school NIA listeners, 89.9K Bitcoin high. Isn't that wild to say out loud? Not really, because you knew it was coming.
No, it's not really. We've known this was coming. We know the debasements of global currencies was going to lead to this. We know the finite supply of BTC. Oh, it's only criminals and scammers use it. Oh, it has no intrinsic value. There's no cash flows. People, when a meme like this hits escape velocity, and I'm making fun of myself. I'm fiat fan. So, dude, all I got to say is this. Has there been a more guaranteed price target than 100K for Bitcoin? There's literally no. Yeah. I don't know when it's going to happen. I'm not going to make any predictions. This is not investment advice, and I don't want him to get steamrolled. There is literally, it's impossible for BTC not to hit 100K.
Well,
it's
there's Michael Saylor who is buying every single top, which we'll talk about a little bit later too. Friend of the pod, Michael Saylor, who is literally up $12 billion. It's pretty wild. He's
after buying every single top.
Yeah, and he literally bought more yesterday. It's insane. At the top, he's buying again. And well, we're talking about everyone new. I'll tell you who did know. Trung's gonna have to tee this one up because.
Oh, this is too funny, man.
So Scottie Pippen. Do you want to tell our
Yeah,
non-American?
so
Most people know who Scottie Pippen is.
Okay,
Who's Scottie
people.
Pippen?
First of all, Scottie Pippen, Hall of Fame, small forward for Chicago Bulls.
Small
Michael Jordan's
forward.
number 2, 6 championship rings. I was a
Legend.
huge Pippen fan, by the way.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And he follows me on Twitter.
Oh,
but when
serious?
I say
No way.
When I say he
Okay.
though, I'll tell you who. I mean, he has somebody running his account clearly.
Yeah,
If anybody
yeah.
has been following Scottie Pippen's account,
Michael
for the past
Saylor's
year,
running his account
Yeah.
apparently because
he's got really deep into Web3 and crypto stuff. And in September, the Scottie Pippen, and I say this again, the Hall of Fame NBA player,
official
Chicago Bulls
Scottie Pippen
legend,
at Scottie Pippen. There you
this
go.
is what he tweeted. Satoshi Nakamoto visited me in my dream last night and predicted that hashtag Bitcoin would be at 84,650 on November 5th, 2024. Not financial advice. Well, I like how he added not financial advice.
I also love that he did hashtag Bitcoin because it's very
Hysterical.
2010s,
Yeah.
early days Twitter.
Clearly, some agencies running this account.
Yeah.
And then our boy Ramp Capital, friend of the pod, writes
Actual friend
in the
of the pod.
comments, "Bro is cooked." LMAO. And then yesterday, which
There
was
we
November
go.
12th, Bitcoin rips from like 78 to 90K. And our boy Ramp brings back up that tweet from early September and says, WTF. And so I can't stress this enough. When I saw the original Scottie Pippen tweet, that was one of the most insane things I'd ever seen. Just the specificity of it, the Satoshi coming in his dreams. I'm like, bro, who is running this account? But for it to hit, good Lord. And I don't know if you saw, if you could pull up the latest tweet, the one he put an hour ago, you're
let
going to
me have a look.
shit. I don't know if you saw it. You will shit
I'll
yourself.
look in the meantime. Go on, you say what
Scottie
you're saying.
Pippen tweeted this morning, or the handler of his account goes, read
The
it, read it.
flashbacks.
Read it.
Bitcoin in 2024 is giving me flashbacks to the Bulls in 91. Sorry. A dynasty just starting, get ready for what's next.
For people that
I
don't
mean, this
understand
guy
this
is
reference.
definitely rivaling our guy
So
Saylor for the biggest
So
pump
for people
right
that
now.
don't,
Insane.
for people that missed that reference, the Bulls won 6 championships in 8 years in the 90s. The most legendary run ever. They won 2 3-peats. So I was joking with Ramp earlier. I'm like, okay, well, since we're only taking our crypto advice from Scottie Pippen, although he did say NFA, not financial advice, if there's 6 more rings to come, because this is 91, the beginning of the dynasty, here's the new price target, people. I'm going to just put it out there. $510,000. That's the new price target.
Wait,
That's-
500 and what? What did you say?
510,000. That's the new price target.
We're definitely putting a big asterisk on this one.
Based on, Jesus, what's wrong with my hair, man? Jesus,
Yeah,
it's not
I've never
very
seen
nice.
your hair like that too. That was funny as hell. For the people listening only, you got to go over to the Spotify
man.
video or YouTube just to see that little glimmer of. You've got a good head of hair. Don't get me wrong.
I got some,
But
I got,
for a
I got some
second there,
lettuce on there, buddy.
Started looking a little rough.
Well, I looked like if I was getting that receding hairline. That's what it looked like. But but I got tons of grays though, man. But anyways, dude. So quickly, can you pull up? You guys actually sent me a tweet that gave a every time Bitcoin hits a new price, what it equals to. Yeah, could you pull that up?
I don't know which one. Who sent that? Was that me?
Okay, so
I don't remember half the stuff I sent, bro.
All right, whatever. So Bitcoin's at 1.6 trillion right now. I think.
Oh, you're talking about market cap.
Yeah,
Okay, got it.
105,000 per coin would put it at 2 trillion, and I think by that math, it would have to be like half, maybe 150. How about 150 makes it larger than Apple and Nvidia? So, a couple of things to look out for as we.
Oh, I see it now. Here we go. Let me just.
Oh
pull
yeah,
it up.
read that out.
Here we go. This one, right? Milestones 102,000 per Bitcoin crosses $2 trillion market cap. 179K crosses Apple market cap. 800K Bitcoin crosses gold. All right. So I think Bitcoin just. I think how big is silver? I think it just went over silver. No. Do you have any idea
Yeah, it's
roughly?
bigger than silver.
Okay. Anyway, regardless, that was the one you were referencing.
All right, so what do we want to talk about? All right, so here, Bilal, from your understanding, what is the reason why Bitcoin is ripping? From your understanding,
Well, we should give context. It's not just Bitcoin ripping. Everything is ripping.
Well,
Stock market all-time
Walk it
high.
through.
we're going to go through, big winners like Tesla's up 40%, but everything is up essentially. And the interesting thing is, because Trump was already marginally the favorite in the polls before, so I think the market was already acting as if Trump was going to win. But then obviously with the kind of landslide victory and the confirmation of him winning, I think it seems to be related to that, obviously. So the idea is there's going to be more deregulation, there's going to be lower interest rates, he's going to be essentially pumping everything that will pump the market is what people were expecting. Maybe my opinion is it was going to probably pump either way long term, even with Kamala winning. I think either way,
well, why did you
it may
think,
have retraced
Kamala?
slightly because people were already expecting the Trump win to a certain extent in the stock market. But long term, the kind of thesis is that everyone's printing money.
The fundamentals are unchanged.
Yeah, they're both going to be printing money, right? Essentially. So if that's the case, then liquidity would equal higher prices of assets, some inflation. But I think now, I don't know, maybe there was still some risk attached to that original kind of short-term view. And now things are really pushing. Now, specifically with crypto, again, who knows what will actually be implemented, but Trump was very pro-crypto in some of his pitches. He went to the Bitcoin conference and talked about, setting up a reserve with Bitcoin in it. He talked about tax, being able to sell Bitcoin without any tax and stuff like that. There were like ideas of that floated. I don't think that's actually going to happen. But yeah, well, what about you? I mean, you follow this a lot closer than I do. So is there something I'm missing?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was, we joked in our group chats about Gary Gensler, the SEC.
Oh, that's the big one, yeah.
Commissioner that will definitely not be the commissioner under Trump. A lot of it, you mentioned some of the other asset classes, some of the like Tesla ripped. And the thing that's notable is a lot of it is like a regulation overhang, because Trump's whole thing is like deregulation, right? It's like going to cut a lot of red tape, lower taxes. Similar to 2016 we talked about last week, right? What the things that ripped. The day of the election, I mean, we should pull up the price charts on some of these things. I think Tesla's up 30, 40%. Obviously, a lot of that has to do with how close Elon was with the actual campaign. And then there was this big regulatory overhang, I'd say, on Tesla and Bitcoin in general. Because you look at Coinbase is ripping. I think Coinbase is up like whatever, 50, 100% since the election. MicroStrategy is completely bonkers. It's up 4x this year and also ripping since the election. What else? Banks ripped on the first day of the election. Markets in general are ripping. And then the things they didn't do as well on the day of, I guess the morning after when people realized that Trump was going to win, was like TSMC didn't do super well because...
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, because they manufacture chips, and there's this expectation that there's going to be
because of tariffs, right?
Exactly. There's going to be kind of a tariff/trade war. But I think those are important things to look at. I think maybe why don't we start going like a sector by sector? And I sent you guys the thing previously.
So Trung, have you seen the MicroStrategy is actually at all-time high, 24-year all-time high? Let me just show you, just to close the loop on Saylor's win here. Definitely one of the biggest winners this week was him. So after 24 years, MicroStrategy has hit all-time high. Pretty insane. But can you see this site? SailorTracker.com. Is that showing on screen?
That's hilarious.
This is an incredible site. Have you seen this before? So someone has gone out and created a tracker for every single purchase reported, and it shows the average. So he's up, I think it is, what does it say? $12.5 billion up. I mean, it's pretty insane, man. Like for what he's done. And look, you can see the latest one here was November 11th, which was yesterday. It's the 12th today.
Yeah, I bought it at 74,000, and he's up
already
like
up 15%. Exactly. So pretty wild.
Not investment advice for people. For the love of God, not investment advice.
It's definitely not.
Because actually, the one thing I will say is I know a lot of people jumping in, and the thing is people jump in and out a lot because that's when you get absolutely cooked because of the volatility. Listen, we know many bigger whales that are going deep in this stuff. It's like, for the love of God, do not investment advice. if you're gonna do it, just examine Scottie Pippen's feed though. Like if
There
you're
we
gonna make
go.
some,
I will say, all jokes aside, though, you just kept that one you bought live on the pod for old school NI listeners. You did it live on the pod, right? I think you bought around 30K.
I mean,
was the price.
I was gonna ask Rafa to throw up the clip, but there's no point because you gotta dig it up. But the whole point, we bought it live, and it's hysterical because bought it like 6 months before the absolute implosion, and then I kept on piling into it because literally every time I talk to you guys, and every time Jack mentioned something that Sailor said or Arthur Hayes said, I'm like, yo, I'm gonna buy some more.
I could see the conversion being happened. The other thing is, though, the key thing is you didn't sell, and you've been holding long term. So that's
I literally didn't look at my brokerage account for the entire year 2022 because of how bad I knew the bloodbath was.
No, that's the move.
Anyways, let's go sector
by sector then, yeah.
Okay.
So do you want to start with
sector by sector with Trump?
Go on. You start then. What's the one? Do you want to start with big tech?
I was just gonna say, just to clarify, we're gonna go sector by sector how a Trump administration may affect the names in that. Remember, this is about business, it's about investing, even though it's not investment advice. This is definitely not about investing. Actually, this is about the business environment and stuff that you guys want to talk about. So I'll rip it off now. We'll talk about big tech. We'll talk about maybe the M&A environment, media. So media is interesting here because a lot of potential M&A in the media space now that the new administration is in. We'll talk a little bit more about crypto. We'll talk about EVs and solar because Trump always loves talking about drill. And we will. What else was there? Those are kind of the main topics.
You got AI, social.
Yeah, AI. Yeah, AI is a good one. All right.
And
social.
tariffs, but I think tariffs is kind of its own thing. Yeah.
Tariffs is probably close with the EVs because we don't want to get too deep into that stuff. There's a lot of policy stuff.
Which one you want to start with?
Let's start with the big tech.
Go for it. So what is the general gist here?
So a lot of people don't remember, but the antitrust stuff, like Bilal's former employer, we have to call it out, Google. The case against Google started under the Trump administration. The search and ad monopolies, or at least one of those started under Trump. Now, Trump was recently asked by, I can't remember if it was Bloomberg or WSJ, like what he thought about Google. Should it be broken up? Because that case, the search case is still running through. You remember that we talked about it, Bilal? Is like it was determined that search was a monopoly, and what are some potential remedies? I think we came to the conclusion that likely what's going to end up happening is that Google's going to pay like whatever, $5-10 billion fine and just call it a cost of doing business, right? That's how a lot of these big tech companies look at regulation.
To the game, man.
Yeah, charge it to the game. Which is, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of the remedies you'd expect, like if you give people a choice screen, they're just going to pick Google anyways, right? And like we actually determined in the episode, the big loser from Google not being able to pay for its distribution, whatever, call it a $500 million a year for Mozilla or $20 billion a year for Apple. The losers are those people because you and me are still going to probably default to Google, and then Apple no longer gets $20 billion straight to the operating profit line, right? Because that's just free money. Now, so Google, he said he would not break it up, or he's against breaking it up. So, and again, you know, his direction, the Trump administration, doesn't necessarily mean it'll bleed through to the regulatory arm because these are still administrative organizations and they have their own mandates. But, you know, you staff them with certain people to kind of push the specific business ideology or the business environment you want to create. So, I don't know how much that really changes the Google stuff. And you have to remember also with Meta, like Trump had beef with Zuck. He blamed Zuck for a lot of the 2020 stuff, and then he blamed Zuck for...
Did Zuck come out and say who he was voting for? Did that come out?
No, he didn't, but he did the opposite where he went neutral.
Because he's been going MMA, lifting weights, so I could see the transition happening.
He looks like he's been listening to all the podcasts that Trump showed up on, like Milk Boys, Lex and Rogan, right? He's been on Lex and Rogan. But I think the larger theme here is it's an accommodation with Trump from the tech side. If you remember 2016, first of all, no one thought he was going to win. And a lot of the tech thought he's on the kryptonite side. And this was before we kind of had this wave of like, you know, woke DEI taking over these corporations. And like the staffing like the staffing put so much pressure on the C-suite that no one obviously would go out and thumbs up for Trump. Do you remember what happened when he became president? They had that conference room. You remember that? He's sitting next to Peter Thiel. He's holding Peter Thiel's hand. Next to him is Larry Page,
Holding
Bezos, Cheryl. No, but I mean, like, seriously.
Yeah.
He's like, this is the guy that helped me, right? He's like, all the big tech CEOs had to basically come kiss the ring. And now in the lead up to this election, I don't know if you remember, we talked about it, right? After the assassination attempt on Trump, Zuck went on Emily Chang's show on Bloomberg. He said, that's the most badass thing I ever saw. He apparently called Trump after it happened. Same with Bezos. Bezos has a contentious relationship with Trump. Amazon, during Trump's first administration, said that Trump had basically strong-armed the Department of Defense to not give Amazon a $10 billion cloud contract. And remember, Bezos owned the Washington Post, and Washington Post was very critical of Trump. I mean, their tagline was "Democracy dies in the darkness," and we saw that we didn't get a chance to discuss it. But 2 weeks ago, what happened? Do you remember what happened with Bezos and the Washington Post?
I heard something about it, but weren't they hiring? No, you tell me, because I've heard a few different things.
2 weeks ago,
closely.
2 weeks ago, so Washington Post is one of the most storied papers in America. The Pentagon Papers went through the Washington Post, also went to the New York Times. That was the papers around the Vietnam War. Watergate, Woodward and Bernstein, that kind of broke the Watergate story. That went through Washington Post. And storied history, the main paper for the city, where the seat of power is for politics. But 2 weeks ago, they had an endorsement written and ready for Kamala Harris. And then Bezos came in and said, no, we're not going to run the endorsement. He says, he said in an essay that's been much critiqued since, that he was making this decision based on principles. He's saying, I don't think a newspaper should be picking a candidate. And his reasoning is correct. He said it should be unbiased because if we're picking candidates, even if it's on the opinion side. So the newspaper industry, the tension that's happening is that there's basically two main parts of a newspaper operation. There's the news and reporting, and then there's the opinion side. And once you see what I'm saying, is that, but once you start having a lot more opinion, they have New York Times has had this issue huge over the past 8 years because a lot of its staff is very
because who else did endorse? Because New York Times did.
New York Times did.
LA Times.
LA Times also spiked, owned by Patrick Shin-Chung, a billionaire biotech entrepreneur. He also spiked a Kamala Harris.
So I mean, they didn't want to come out.
No, it was written. Like these things were written, and they just came down and they told editorial boards like, no, we don't want to run it.
I have a question for you, Trung. Do you think if Kamala was, leading the polls crazy and it was so obvious she was going to win, they would have stopped it?
Well, that's the question about so this is, I mean, you know the question. And Bezos wrote it specifically. He's like, I know the timing looks awful. And it was awful timing. He spiked it a week or 2 weeks before the election. It looks, I mean, even if he was principled.
Like, you're choosing, that's the time you're choosing to do it. You gotta
be PR. Like, why didn't you do this 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Why didn't you make it clear after 2020 that you would not be endorsed? So the other thing that made that sticky was that the CEO of Blue Origin met with Trump the day the news came out that Bezos was spiking it. So it looked like a quid pro quo. Bezos said, this is what Bezos said. He said that when he found out that the CEO of Blue Origin is meeting with Trump that he didn't know about, he just sighed. He's like, they're going to think that I'm not making this out of principle. And again, I think his principle is correct. I don't think newspapers, because it doesn't make a difference. Like, do you think a swing state voter in Pennsylvania is thinking, hey, I wonder what the Washington Post thinks about this election? No, they don't care, right? So it doesn't actually make a difference. B, it will antagonize some of your readers. And but C is the main point. The timing was awful. These 10% of the Washington Post subscriber base, they canceled their subscription. 10%. Obviously, he doesn't need the money. It's a loss leader for him. But yeah, so. Back to let me bring it back. I'm doing the weave here. We're doing the weave.
Yeah, we got to weave the weave.
But
the
so Bezos clearly had a contentious relationship. But dude, the day that Trump was elected, Andy Jassy, CEO of Amazon, who had introduced himself secretly on the phone months ago, congratulates him. Bezos congratulates him. Zuck congratulates him. Sundar Pichai, Tim Cook. So Tim Cook actually, so we're going through the big tech companies. Tim Cook's actually had a good relationship with Trump. What people don't realize about Cook, this guy is Warren Buffett said that Cook is a master politician. And what he means by that is
became the CEO of Apple, so that's part of the job,
but that's
right?
what I mean, right? Is like,
yeah.
People may not remember 2011 when Steve Jobs it's clear he was sick and was going to probably die in the near future. People were like, who's going to be the next CEO of Apple? It was either Tim Cook, the COO at the time, or Jony Ive, the spiritual, like basically brother to Steve Jobs, right? The design guy. But Steve Jobs knew that this company, they already built the greatest consumer product ever. Now it's just to scale it, right? And who's the master at geopolitics, logistics, and supply chain? It's Tim Cook.
Yeah.
And but there's been a lot of criticism about this on the Tim Cook side because remember, Trump is tough on China. That's his rhetoric. Tim Cook has invested as part of an agreement with the Chinese Communist Party and the government in China to allow them to operate the way they do. Remember, Apple sells maybe a fifth of their products in China. Massive manufacturing, Foxconn, in China, right? I think 50 to 60% of iPhones, maybe more, are made in China and / Taiwan.
We've seen the nets. Yes.
Yeah, we've seen, bro. I mean, for those that don't know the reference, but I was making it very dark. Like there was a investigative report at Foxconn, which is these massive like campuses that employ hundreds of thousands of people. They have literally nets. But Bilal, what are the nets for?
Well, reportedly it was because people were jumping and like
employees, right? Because they're treating like robots. It's like
they're not having a good life there, and they were jumping. And so instead of like addressing those things, allegedly they put up nets just to stop them from jumping, essentially. So I'm laughing because it's a ridiculous.
No, it is, right? Yeah, you're
do.
not. I mean, it's extremely dark, and I mean, we talk about it, but like, I got multiple Apple products, right?
Completely.
Like, everybody lives with this tension, right? And so Apple, though, back to it. Why did it have a good relationship with Trump? Because I don't even remember this photo op. What did Trump call Tim Cook in the first administration? Tim Apple.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Tim Apple.
I can't remember where the factory was. But remember, Trump's whole thing is we were bringing jobs back, right?
Yeah,
and so Apple agreed to, I think, make some laptops. Bro, you remember that? He agreed to make some laptops. I think it might have been in Indiana. And like, you know, Trump, man, like he's all about the optics. This guy's a master politician,
he's the king
right?
of making those names anyway.
He just want to walk with the CEO of the most powerful company in the world, and then he's calling him Tim Apple. So this, I think this is like 17, 18. You forgot about that, right?
Yeah, that's hilarious.
But Tim Cook is like, he knows how to. Dude, Tim Cook's investing $200 billion into China during a freaking trade war between the United States and China, right? And like Trump is giving him a tariff carve out. Like Trump's talking about tariffs from all these things in China. He's giving Apple a carve out because Apple products are all coming from China. So like Apple's got a really good relationship with Cook. With Trump.
That brings up just on tariffs because it's kind of related here to big tech. Specifically, my question is on Apple, which you kind of just talked about there because it's such a big part of their business. But then also Amazon, like you just said, because half the stuff coming up on Amazon is coming from China. I take it. Like, I don't know if it's half, but like a significant portion.
Oh, yeah.
And just the amount, even if you're importing as a distributor here, or if you're a wholesaler here, a lot of your stuff is being made in China. So have you read much about the potential impact?
I have.
On
great
that,
question.
On tariffs? Yeah.
No, that's a great question. So let me give top line what Trump is saying. Because the economists, I'm doing air quotes, the expert economists.
Yeah.
This is their biggest criticism of Trump's economic plan. He's saying he wants 10 to 20% tariffs across the board. Everything that comes in the United States. And he wants 60% on China products if he really wants to put the squeeze on them. This is not going to happen, people. There's two reasons it's not going to happen. They don't have the full, they have majorities in the House and in the Senate, but not Like you need super majorities to push some of these extreme things through. Although tariffs are in the purview of the executive branch, whereas taxes go through the legislative branch. But having said that, to your question exactly, tariffs are a very blunt tool, right? They're very blunt. It's just like 10 to 20% across the board is extremely blunt.
I'd say they're blunt if they're done across the board, though.
Yeah, it's a negotiating tactic. I mean, this is purely... Yeah,
categories.
if anybody listens to what Trump has done in his first administration, this is a Scott Adams 101. Scott Adams, a cartoonist, and kind of basically, he called Trump in 2015. He's like, Trump's going to win the election. He's like, dude, this is anchoring. We talk about it all the time, Bilal. You take extreme positions and then you just build towards the middle. Right? It's just like
everything seems like a win after that for the other side. Yeah.
Well, dude, think about it. Remember the 2015? I'm gonna make we're gonna build a wall with Mexico and we're gonna make them pay for it. Like literally, this is the stuff he was saying, right? What ended up happening is kind of hardened the border. It's about the optics, right? It's like so this is what's gonna end. I think this is to your specific question about Amazon. So Amazon is facing huge competition from Temu, which we like to joke about here. Temu, which is for people who don't use it, it's that shop like a billionaire. Bilal, have you ever used Temu?
I've never used it, but I've seen the ads.
But dude, you can buy like a USB toaster for $5.
Yeah. And the joke is always like so and so looks like a Temu version of whatever, like a cheaper version or whatever.
Well, so the point
there's actually a lot of use cases in football, like the football memes and stuff, because it's like a player is a Temu version of someone else.
Yeah, exactly. But they ran 4 ads during the Super Bowl. But Temu, so quick point on Temu, and Shein, the other big Chinese fast fashion app / company, they built fucking massive businesses. I think Shein is making more money than H&M and Zara, which are the fast fashion
mad
giants, right? But they actually found a loophole, to your point, in tariffs. Under $900, I think, there's exclusions for tariffs and taxes. So and we just joked about it. You could buy a $5 toaster USB. You don't have to pay taxes on that.
Way below the 900 tariff, I think.
No, exactly, right? And so a thing about Trump's tariffs that are interesting is that the Biden administration, the Democrats basically took everything that Trump did and all the rhetoric and basically and put it into policy. Because the biggest thing about 2016 with Trump, in my estimation, I mean, he had two big things. Domestically, he packed the Supreme Court with right-leaning judges, and that obviously led to the turning over of Roe versus Wade, the abortion executive order from the 60s. There's that part. But internationally, the China aspect, right? Two things he did is ask NATO to pay more for their defense. There's a 2% of your, I think 2% of GDP has to be put towards defense. That's kind of like the agreement amongst NATO countries. The second thing was the tariffs. And the tariffs against China specifically, and kind of this China trade war. And we saw over the last 4 years, we talked about how the Biden administration has put up, restrictions on semiconductors. But just to specifically answer your question is you asked about Amazon. So Amazon has actually been asking the Biden administration effectively to help them compete against Shein and Temu. And so there is legislation sitting on Biden's desk, I think, or if it doesn't cross Biden's desk, it'll end up in Trump's desk to can you get rid of this rule where under $900 has no tariff or tax implications? So kind of even the playing field. Also, Amazon, to your exact point, they have so many Chinese sellers, right? They're also building a low cost thing.
Selling direct, yeah.
They're secretly trying to take advantage of it too, right? So I think, so have we gone through all the big tech companies? So just to summarize, I think, the thing we haven't talked about is social. So what is waiting for TikTok right now? It's the ban. And the Trump goes into office Jan 20. I think that I think the order to force the sale of TikTok is the day after he's in. And so there's a lot of talk now that Trump, initially, he was the one that tried to ban TikTok. And then on this election cycle, one of his biggest donors is Jeff Yass. Jeff Yass has a massive angel investment that's up to 30-40 billion in ByteDance, the owner of TikTok. And then now people are adding the Elon element. Elon has a big Tesla operation in China, right? China manufactures a ton of the cars for Tesla in Shanghai. So are all these
and
pieces
to
now?
a maybe lesser extent, he also has a social network, which doesn't directly compete at the moment necessarily with TikTok, but there is an overlap with. They're trying to do more video. They're doing vertical video, stuff like that.
Well, what's the thing that we talked about? The thing we talked about is like, is X the backdoor potential acquirer of TikTok, right? Because people are already talking that X is going to acquire DJT, Trump's social media network, which makes $1 million and loses $100 million.
Could you imagine that? That would be
I
absolutely
think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen. And so on the social side, that's the question, right? Well, what's going to happen with TikTok? I think I read somewhere that's actually not that clear cut. It looks like the executive order is written in such a way under Biden where it's not clear that Trump can even necessarily turn it over. I mean, he can do another executive order, but this thing might just squirrel through the court systems. But there's a lot of trade pieces here that are on the table.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the big tech, which I think that's a good segue into say Tesla specifically in EV, because I know Tesla isn't technically, they don't count it as the big ones we normally talk about, but they are one of the biggest ones in the market cap table anyway. So what do we want to talk about there? Because obviously I think it's worth us talking about Elon winning big too, because that's kind of something we discussed a little bit previously. But this was an example. Whatever you think of Elon, he went absolutely hard. He tripled down, quadrupled down.
This is literally
pretty wild.
Bet the farm, right? He bet.
Yeah, and we said if he didn't win Trump, that he would have been in trouble, and now it's the opposite. He's winning big because of his support.
Yeah, well, you guys sent me that the poker tweet. Somebody put out a tweet like Elon's risk appetite.
The story of him playing poker. Yeah.
So I'll tell you I'll reiterate it, but there's a section of Walter Isaacson's book about Elon Musk that he talks about. He talks to guys like Peter Thiel, obviously famous VC, co-founder of PayPal, Reid Hoffman also of PayPal Mafia. They asked him about Elon's risk appetite. And Peter Thiel basically said that Elon knows something about risk that I don't think anybody else does. It's like, this is the guy that would start Tesla and SpaceX he bought into Tesla. This is always a point of contention. But like before Elon, there was no sale of a car and like 5 employees, right? So he scaled up these two hard tech businesses, which are, frankly, if an individual had done one of them, it would have been insane. For one person to do two, I can't even give the odds on that. The probability is like nilch. But the poker story you guys sent me was that he was playing poker and he's not a poker player. All he did was go all in, like over and over. Go all in, lose, buy some more, go all in, lose. And then he just go all in enough, eventually just won everything and just walked away. And like, that's his mindset. And he clearly, in this election cycle, because you remember the amount of lawfare against Elon. The Delaware courts took away his $55 billion pay package, right? We talked about it here. And the problem with that people can argue it, right? Is like in 2018, were the Tesla shareholders fully informed? Because they voted yes on this. And the chancellor of the Delaware court basically said, yeah, well, they weren't fully informed about it. And Elon didn't reveal all of his conflicts of interest, and so I'm just going to withdraw this pay package from 6 years ago. I mean, but if you read anything from that time period, not a single person in the world thought he was going to hit these pay package numbers. People were laughing at the pay package, and he hit it. Tesla shareholders were not upset. Let's just put it that way. And I think that's been reversed. But that still has to go through the court system. Tons of lawfare around Tesla, SpaceX. We talked about that last week. That's why I made a big bet. Anyways, to Tesla specifically, EVs. Now, people love talking about how so much of Tesla's business, I think the last 5 years, a lot of the operating profit is from EV credits. Because the government has basically mandated that there has to be certain green and sustainable goals for cars, right? I think we've talked about this, Bilal. It's like a car should hit certain environmental kind of milestones. And if a company like Tesla, which obviously doesn't do any fossil fuels, doesn't have internal combustion engines, they can sell basically their credits to other car makers and manufacturers. So a third or something about their operating profit comes from selling these credits. People love being like, oh, look, it's like the government supports that. What people don't understand is go look at how much money and subsidies were meant to create the oil and gas economy in the United States. The entire U.S. military, which is whatever, 5-10% of the U.S. budget, all the aircraft carriers around the world, around the Gulf, the Persian Gulf, what do you think that's doing? That's protecting the oil and gas industry, right? So like the government subsidizing an industry to bring on a new energy paradigm, this is not new. Same with nuclear. And people making that criticism. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's the incentive is there because it needed someone to actually make a difference.
Yeah, it needs to happen,
in that
right?
space.
It's like, trust me, subsidies is not enough. And people make the same complaint about SpaceX. Oh my God, the U.S. government is giving $15 billion of contracts to SpaceX. I'm like, all right, well, if you don't have SpaceX and you want to get to the International Space Station, go call up Vladimir Putin because literally NASA can't do it. Boeing can't do it, right? It's like, you should spend a small percentage of your national economy on things that are national security requirements. And SpaceX and space is that right now. And that's because he built this business from scratch when not a single person thought he could do it, right? So there's that angle. And then just to wrap up the Tesla part, Tesla, you had mentioned tariffs. And then you'd also mentioned EV credits. So let's talk about those two things. Will tariffs help Tesla? So Elon's actually gone on and say, I don't want tariffs on the Chinese cars. The BYD, which is a major competitor. BYD is dominating in the under $15,000 EV car category. You have to remember Teslas are around the 30K kind of range. BYD, if it came in now to the United States, and Europe also has banned it largely, same with Canada, just eat up the entire lower end of the market. I'm actually for that ban because I think a lot of the Chinese subsidies from the government itself is making these cars like unnaturally competitive. It's like BYD is probably selling at a loss if they weren't getting free energy and low interest loans from the Chinese government, right? But then so that's on the should they ban car side. So I think the BYD, I think they will ban Chinese cars or put fat tariffs on them. That'll keep them out of the country. But then to your point about the EV credit, Trump has said a lot of things about the EV credits. He wants to get rid of them. But actually this benefits Tesla because Tesla manufactures at scale. It manufactures millions of cars a year. And that means that it can take the hit from not having that 7,500 EV credit. Whereas a Ford GM, they cannot manufacture profitably without that credit. And even with that credit, they're losing money. Same with Rivian. That's why you'd mentioned on the day of the election, Tesla ripped and those other car companies got clapped. Anything else? Those are my main.
Well, I was going to say, Trung, just specifically on Elon, since we've talked about it. Did you read the Ben Thompson thing? I think it was straight after the election.
Yeah, hit it. What were the main points?
Let me just pull this up here. Can you read that?
Yeah, hit it, read it.
So he basically said, what is fascinating is this was in relation to the Twitter acquisition in relation to the election and what's now happened. So we've talked about this on the pod quite a bit, and it's quite an interesting angle because the summary is the $44 billion he paid for Twitter was at the time especially probably overpaying, and as a business that sits on its own, it wasn't probably worth that, isn't worth that necessarily now.
It definitely wasn't worth $44 billion.
Yeah, well, in isolation, when you look at like ad revenue and all those different revenue streams, but what it's now allowed him to do to help his candidate essentially is, way bigger than
Dude, just
that amount.
read through the text.
Yeah,
man.
so he says, what is fascinating is how this fundamentally transforms any attempt to evaluate the Twitter acquisition. From a business perspective, it's a massive failure. It might always be. Must pay too much for Twitter as it was. And in the intervening years of the flight of advertisers from the platform has made it worth even less. From a Musk Inc. perspective, however, X played a pivotal role in ensuring that the incoming administration will do whatever Musk needs at the exact moment that SpaceX is gaining the capabilities to actually make a trip to Mars, if only the FAA in particular will give him the freedom to do so. That alone is almost certainly worth $44 billion to Musk, which is a great point. This is more broad. Go on. This more broadly gets at why Musk is so hard to discuss. A focus on his accomplishments, particularly Tesla and SpaceX, are so significant that it seems reasonable to excuse the means. At the same time, I am sympathetic to those so offended by the means that they oppose him in principle. What cannot be denied, however, is that he is consequential.
He nailed it, right?
Really
nailed it. Shocker, Ben Thompson nailed it. All right, Bilal. So, the thing on the Ben Thompson and the regulators, he mentioned FAA with SpaceX. So, agreed on that point. And the other thing I'd mention that we briefly touched on the regulators with Bitcoin about Gary Gensler, SEC. The other thing that I forgot to mention about the Bitcoin, remember how Trump was talking about the Bitcoin strategic reserve? Like he wants to build out a massive strategic reserve for the U.S. government. So also not investment advice, bullish. But
do you think that's realistic? Do you think he would actually do that?
I mean, I think so. Actually, I think there's a lot of the people. Something that we should have mentioned earlier with it was like in this election cycle, the lobbyist group that spent the most money was the crypto industry. 130 million. They got their preferred candidates into Congress. A lot of their policies are now top tier of importance. Paul Graham, actually, a YC Combinator co-founder, said the biggest mistake that the Kamala campaign did, and he was supporting the Democrats, or he wrote positively about the Democrats, was that they needlessly, in his estimation, alienated the crypto community. And we're pretty measured here about the tomfoolery that goes on in the crypto industry, right?
Yeah.
Clearly, there's some positive. Clearly, a lot of shitty things happen, but I think the Democrats threw the baby out with the bathwater. So the crypto industry, which is sitting on fat stacks, they just put their money around. It's like, okay, well, we're just going to support the other side, right?
Well, it's actually interesting because I've spoken to one of my friends who is really into this stuff as well, and he was saying, if you think of the idea of like a single issue voter, like I'm not saying everyone who's into that, was it 50 million people or whatever, are single issue voters on Bitcoin or crypto for sure. Definitely not. But there's definitely a percentage of those people that are single issue, that actually would be like, oh, if you're going to be pro my bags, essentially, I'm going to vote for you. And I'm sure there's lots of those people. So it seemed like an easy win.
It's low hanging fruit, right?
It's low hanging fruit. And I think she did try to go after it towards the end, but it felt disingenuous.
Well, she did it in
literally
the most memeable way possible. She said, I hear the black community and my African American brothers want to do you see that? You remember that?
I do remember seeing that.
We're going to help protect you and your crypto investments. It was like the most patronizing. Anyways, we're not getting into the campaign and politics, people.
Here we go. But, that was a tough one.
So we'll pause that.
And actually, just one last thing, not on that part, but on Trump specifically, he is, let's say he is pro doing something like that. He's also the most pro on keeping dollar as the reserve currency for the world. So
yes,
which they don't have
Tension.
to both. Yeah, and so I think the pure Bitcoin maxi utopia of this means everyone's moving to the equivalent of a gold standard, but using Bitcoin, which is a long, the purest version of this. Look, like he may want to do this to support something that he promised in his campaign, but he also wants the US dollar to be a strong currency that the whole world still uses. That's part of the reason for the tariffs and all the other
so
deals.
Actually, to your tariff point, I do want to bring up one thing that that is worth noting. I know that we're jumping all over the place here, but I think by the time people will finish listening to this, they'll get a full picture of the brain. Listen, I think a lot of people.
That's what podcast for, man.
That's what it is, right? The weave. I think a lot of people last week have just been reading and digesting what's going on, right? And
now we're weaving. Reading and weaving. There we go.
Reading and weaving. No, but the other proposal I had was to get rid of the income tax. This is how it used to be in the 19th century.
For crypto, you're saying?
No.
Oh, no, sorry. Period. Yeah.
Sorry. If you're going to have
sorry, I was thinking of capital gains tax specifically for crypto. And again,
everything about taxing and tariffs, it's about how it distorts the economy, right? If you tax one thing, it will move the economy to another place, another industry, right? So these are always trade-offs. But basically what he's proposing is very 19th century style thing, right? It's like, we're going to slap tariffs, which is very old school, and then we're going to protect U.S. industry. I think the underlying principle is a fair principle, right? I think the United States from basically the mid-90s to the mid 2015s, basically sold the middle class, middle America down the river, exported all the jobs abroad. This is true. It's happening in all Western societies. And
globalization, basically, though, right?
Yeah, exactly, right? We talked about it here. It's like, dude, 20 years ago, you couldn't talk bad about globalization. But now everybody's realizing the massive costs there are of just exporting all the jobs abroad, hollowing out your industrial base. There are long-term costs to these things. Now, so that the whole point is like, I really don't think that we're going to get this massive tariff thing and then like no income tax. Like this, that just seems very unfeasible.
Yeah, it's a big change.
That's a big change. But the last thing I'd add on the regulatory side is it does look like, want to trim up the regulatory state. Not going to be easy. These are entrenched institutions, right?
Yeah.
And but like to Tesla's point, so we can wrap up Tesla, a lot of self-driving automations happening. And then there's a National Highway Transportation Safety Authority or Administration, I believe. I mean, they're going to be policing that and overlooking that. So that's another part that could be positive for Tesla. Also for like Waymo in general, right? And I think last week we talked about, or 2 weeks ago, we talked about the Waymo versus Tesla approach to autonomous driving. And we talked about how the biggest hurdle is just human psychology. How many deaths are we willing to put up with from what will be a safer alternative? But how many, like, if it's 50,000 deaths a year now, would we be okay in the United States? Or would the United States not, would the United States be okay with 30,000 deaths? But all those deaths are autonomous related? Probably not, right? It's like the bar requirement for autonomous and AI is so high because there's just not that human element. I mean, there's been studies around this, like how much more people are willing to judge something based on human versus robotic input, right? This is a sense of control. And so I think we can, that ends up, that kind of wraps up the Tesla side. The AI side then.
Just last question on that, as it relates tangentially to Elon Musk specifically, how involved do you think he's actually going to be? And we are jumping here, but the Doge committee or whatever it's called, the Department of Government Expenditure, is that what it's supposed to be standing for?
Oh, Department of Government Efficiency?
Costs. Yeah, efficiencies, exactly. So how realistic do you think that actually is? Do you think he's actually going to be involved with that from what you've read?
I mean, he's a busy guy, right? And
just add that to his list of
I could see like an advisory council happening, and then people have talked about a lot is like how long will these two be in good graces?
That's a good point.
But I think they're extremely aligned with Vance to kind of trim the government. And the government is such outside of like, what are the biggest organizations? It's like the United States administrative state and like the Chinese Communist Party are the two biggest organizations in the world.
Yeah, employers basically.
Yeah,
as well, right?
Exactly, right? And I read somewhere that somebody made a great point. Is like, if Elon could if he could turn around a single department, if he could turn around NASA, just NASA, that would be a massive win, right? And to take on like, the administrative state, the regulatory bodies, all of them is like, man, it's just like, it's almost impossible job.
Lot.
But at least there's just, you can have some blank page thinking now, but I don't know how much of it can get done. I think he will be involved. And I think frankly, there are some new ideas that need to be made because the bigger picture that people always talk about, or, I think the most sober analysis of U.S. politics is always like, hey, these are all these problems here. Here's the biggest problem. This debt and deficit situation is absolutely insane. It's like the U.S. government is printing.
Big problem for either side, whoever side.
Exactly. That's the thing. That's the sword of Damocles that's hanging over everything, right? It's like in 10 years, a third of the government's budget is going to be paying off interest. You can't do anything. You have no more discretionary spending. You can't do anything.
But no one wants to be the government that does that, man.
Exactly, right? That's why it keeps ratcheting up.
And that's why you keep printing money, because that's the other way of doing it, is just.
So Trump comes in and says, I'm gonna, Elon's like, we're gonna cut $2 trillion a year from the budget. But it's like, man, that's a lot of jobs, right? A lot. And so like, that's what you're going up against. That's what makes it so hard, right? But it's necessary. It's clearly a necessary thing that all Western governments have to think about. These debt levels are completely unsustainable.
He said $2 trillion. What's the
He's saying
budget?
It was either $2 trillion over 10 years, which doesn't really impact it, but $2 trillion a year That's like all discretionary spending, which is
what's
not.
the total? What, 6-7
I
trillion?
think the U.S.
is
budget is about
budget.
6-7 budget. Yeah.
6-7. So that's a significant. That's a
your
quarter of it.
taxes right there, Bilal, and I guess technically mine too, depending on where I'm working from.
Yeah.
Well, technically not anymore, but
Yeah, well, everyone's involved somehow, Trung, as we saw in the last week. The whole world was talking about this. So, all right, anything else on that? And that was good to wrap up on the Elon part. I think we covered most of these. Was there anything else? Maybe media you kind of touched on earlier, but
yeah, the last thing I'll say then is at the very top, it talked about antitrust under Trump in the first administration. So he wasn't antitrust. Like he famously tried to block AT&T's merger with Time Warner, and apparently that was because he didn't like CNN's coverage of himself, right? And like that obviously is not how political power should be wielded against your potential enemies. Granted, we've seen a lot of wielding of political powers now on the Democratic side in the last couple of years against their political enemies, namely Trump. Having said that, David Zaslav, the head of Warner Discovery, it was very happy about this. He said on earnings calls, like, listen, under the Trump's administration, we might be able to merge with Paramount or Peacock. I think that's my prediction. I think Paramount or Peacock will end up merging with Time Warner because those are subscale streamers. They can't compete with Netflix at their existing levels. And then Amazon and Apple, their streaming services aren't dependent on just the streaming, right? They have Amazon's entire Prime business, Apple's iPhone business, whatever, all that stuff. And then Disney's got its whole conglomerate too with Disney Plus. So that's it. That's all I'll say on the media side. I think there's going to be a big merger. It'll be, I bet Warner Discovery, probably, if I had to say, I'd say with Paramount. Maybe Peacock actually, because Comcast is trying to get rid of NBC.
Yeah. All right. Anything else on that, or anything else to wrap up post-election
that's good.
analysis? That was a good breakdown.
And let's do the quick end, just like Mr. Beast taught us. Thank you, everyone.
There we go.
Until next week.
Take it easy. Bye-bye.